Continuing here. Uh, the Earth is growing at the rate of about 60 tons of cosmic dust a day falling on the Earth. And so all the atoms, molecules of every person that ever lived and died on the face of the Earth and that are living today still exist upon the Earth, for the most part, the vast majority. And the way the story goes is that God's going to resurrect the dead, and that's Judgment Day, that the wicked people go here. Jesus described like sheep from the goats, or pulling the weeds out of the garden with the cultivars. And it makes a lot of sense to me. And scientifically speaking, there's no way anybody can disprove it, because science does not understand life. They don't understand the origins. I mean, a lot of scientists are believers in God, and some of the most renowned ones were believers in God, because there's just no way to explain the vast mystical. That's a word I made up. I like to make up words once in a while, because it's a mystery and a miracle wrapped in one. So it's mysterious, and they open one door, the scientists do, and then there's 10 more staring them in the face. And each one they open, there's more and more doors to go through to understand all the wanton design, intricate design, that all these parts that are integrated together in creation. It's so evident, so obvious that there's a mastermind behind all this. And that mastermind we generally refer to as God, because we just don't understand. We just don't know. And so we just say, well, let's give God honor. Let's give God the credit and glory. And, let's praise God because it's beautiful. I mean, look at the flowers. Look at the fauna. Look at the flora. It's really cool. Look at a kitty cat. Look at a puppy dog. I mean, this stuff is out. It's like somebody loves us to give us these, endow us with these things, bestow these things upon us for us to enjoy. And then the male-female thing and procreation thing. I mean, what's that all about? So this whole idea that it's just a fluke and a quirk, it doesn't fly. It flies in the face of logic. It's a non sequitur. So, anyhow, I know I'm digressing on one thing after another, but the point is just to have some basis for your faith. And how this all fits into being a righteous person and, exposing the fruitless deeds of darkness of the evildoers in this world. And tapping into recent historical events. I was talking about how Alex Jones needs to talk, and we need to revisit 1963 and what the implications would be if JFK had gotten his way. If even though they murdered him, then at least we the people should carry on his legacy of sound economic policies. At least demand that. Okay, and anybody that opposes us, if like Ted Nugent's song Stranglehold, if a house gets in your way, you're going to burn it down, metaphorically speaking. You understand? So we needed to burn the house down, so to speak. That's a Federal Reserve Bank. If any politicians try to stop us. So anyhow, that bailout of '08 was a direct cause of these policies, these unsound economic policies. And who got their way? A critical mass of about 10% roughly of the American people got their way in that bailout. That's a direction we're going on. Then we want to call it a republic. We want to call it a democracy. I mean, this is insanity, folks. We've stepped in it so deep, and we're all, just brainwashed to believe somehow we're going to tweak things a little and we're going to somehow get back on course, but nobody even knows what that means because nobody even has basic rudimentary understanding of economic principles like capitalism and supply and demand, and what is, how does progress relate to that? How do we define progress relative to the free market, and how this capitalism benefits everybody? Because if it doesn't benefit everybody, then why should everybody be for it, right? So let's just, we need intellectual honesty here. And yes, of course, you need to be logical and reasonable and be willing to discuss these things. But we need to revisit this. We need to revisit recent history. We need to revisit the bailout of '08. What would be the implications if this 10%, this critical mass of 10% didn't get their way, and all these politicians? And you take this immigration thing into account. What's going on here? Can an undocumented visitor into our country run for political office? What is the vetting process? You understand there's all these people that have jobs, and you notice they're big proponents often. And even people that are invested in Wall Street, they're smart people a lot of times, and they know what the Chamber of Communists know. The more the merrier, because they're consumers of consumables, which is stuff you use up, like food and toiletries, and you just name it. The sky's the limit. They use automobiles and everything else under the sun. They need housing. Do you understand how by putting a demand on these things, you get more stock dividends, shares? This is how it works. So if the stock market's been suffering recently, it's probably because of these economic policies. So you understand, these people don't want the immigration bridled. They want, as far as they're concerned, like I said, the more the merrier. And for a lot of people, it's a head count. The schools is just one example of people kind of, oh yes, that's true. We know they get paid because they count how many pupils, and so they're funded accordingly by how many pupils attend the school. So the more the funding, then the more pupils, the more the funding. That's just one little example. So I'm just pointing out that there's a whole lot of people in professions that took higher education. They had to get a great education, everything. These guilds and whatnot, they're not threatened by illegal immigrants, or undocumented workers, to be PC here. Their jobs are not threatened. Their occupations, so these people are not competing, the undocumented workers, with their jobs. So they're going to have a different perspective. Do you understand? That's what's really going on here. Is all these people that are unaffected that actually profit, literally, it's about money. They benefit from the illegal, undocumented immigrants coming into this country. But what we're hearing from the border is horrific. We're hearing approximately 9 out of 10 of these children, minor children coming in, teenagers, whatever, 9 out of 10 of them don't have any adult guardians. And we're telling, all you hear in the mainstream media, they haven't touched on that to this day. They're starting to have to open up a little bit. And when Melania Trump goes and visits a camp, they got to talk about it. When Trump changes the policy, they got to talk about it. But they won't talk about how it was even worse under Obama. This has been a long-standing policy. This is the way Border Patrol and Immigration, ICE, and all these people work together. This is how they deal with it. And how is it different? When people break the law in America, let's say you got a couple with some children and they're sniffing coke, and then they get busted for it. What do you think's going to happen to the children for this? What is it, a felony or something? And I mean, I don't even believe, this is a war on drugs, so I don't even believe they should be arrested for the cocaine. I think what we need is education. And this is something I wanted to talk about too, is education about this drug use. You notice how the TV, they ran a few ads, I remember back several years ago, about the meth. They showed the before and after pictures, but it was too effective and people weren't using meth. They're going, oh, what kind of an idiot? Look, I'm going to destroy my health in just a short order. In just a few years of using this drug, my teeth are going to be rotten and I'm going to look like hell and I'm going to look utterly miserable. That's the effect of using meth. Why don't they show the heroin addicts? They're not showing that, but we know we got an epidemic of opiates and people strung out on various drugs of one type or another. They're not doing, I could make really effective commercials on that. Don't use cocaine. You're an idiot if you use cocaine. You're supporting these bloodthirsty cartels cutting people's heads off. And a lot of these kids, by the way, they lost their parents on the way up, coming north through Mexico, using Mexico to pass through. And also, according to international law, the closest country adjacent, the neighboring country that's touching the country of origin of the refugees, is supposed to, by law, international law, take them in. Well, but Mexico's a poor nation. Really, they're a poor nation? How much in debt is Mexico? Are they $20 trillion in debt like America? Poor? I mean, talk about a relative statement. Are they in debt? Yeah, well, if they don't want to go in debt, then they're going to have all these problems that we have. They're more frugal and prudent than stupid Americans. So I mean, if you're going to just print money and go further in debt, everybody says, well, I mean, jump on the bandwagon, and America's the new bandwagon of the world, and just come into America and all your problems will be solved. And these cartels, these bloodthirsty cartels, have taken a lot of lives. These women getting raped, girls getting raped. I mean, the stories are horrendous. And then we're complaining because these kids. I mean, some of the I object strong. But let me look. Nobody is going to pigeonhole me as incompassionate. Okay, I'm as compassionate as they get. But when these people get on a sanctimonious high horse, when we're letting families, Native American, Native just means born in America, yes, mostly white-skinned males out there, are dying out on the streets. Do you understand what I'm saying? This has been going on for decades, and the problem has just gotten worse and worse. Even though we, the taxpayers, society, the civilized society purportedly, have been spending $50 billion annually, each year, $50 billion every single year to subsidize the housing costs for people that can't afford housing. And you're telling me with all these undocumented workers coming in, they're going to these government agencies, they're leapfrogging on the backs of legal people trying to immigrate here legally, okay, and the native citizenry, and they're getting treated with preference, okay, because they list on their application that they're in the farm worker industry. I've seen the Section 8 application. As soon as you check that box, you go to the top of the pile. Do you understand what's going on here? It's got to be something like that. I don't know all the ins and outs, but we know there's probably tons of bribes going on. We've all heard the stories. It's come out right on Seinfeld, right? Remember the apartment Elaine was hoping to get? It was rent-controlled apartment. Remember that? And then it was about paying the super. Somebody offered $5,000, and Elaine had to borrow the $5,000 from Jerry to bribe the super. Then somebody offered $10,000, so she lost it because she wasn't willing to go in debt to $10,000 for this rent-controlled apartment. So some of this stuff is in your face going on here. And I'm just telling you, man, I mean, this is serious stuff. When these social workers are themselves, look, they're playing preference, okay? They're biased. They say, well, I'm going to look after my own types, so I'm all for, let them all in. I'm a humanitarian, but I can't worry about you poor, slobs, mostly white people. You don't see too many black people homeless because that's not PC, right? I mean, I'm just saying. You don't see a lot of brown and you don't see a lot of black. I'm just saying, I'm not a racist. Look, I adored Martin Luther King Jr. and I adore Kanye West, and I adore a whole hell of a lot of black men. Lately, I've been seeing a lot of them through the Alex Jones show and InfoWars. Really, men I like a lot. I just don't care what color you are. I don't care what nationality you come from, your ancestry, your race. Look, it's really a very, very, very little importance. What's really important is that we play by rules that apply to everybody equally across the board, and we're not doing that. We're not doing that, okay? And we've got to admit it. So once we fix our own problems in America, I'm no xenophobe. I just, let's let everybody in the whole world, everybody that wants to move to America, let them move here. But let's also work on fixing problems in their own homelands, like these people coming from El Salvador. Even though people say Venezuela has descended into a hellhole, socialist hellhole, people eating dogs and maybe even each other or something. Rumors get out. But San Salvador, El Salvador. Then what we need to do, we got all these military, we're closing up bases in over there near North Korea, these exercises. We got all these military men twiddling their thumbs, looking for something to do. Well, let's go down and police their neighborhoods. If they don't have police down there in San Salvador, NBC sent a reporter down there recently, and this guy's walking around. He says, I'm in the worst neighborhood, and he's all just, walking around in this. No police, no questioning any of the police. What are you doing about this? No questioning the military. What are they doing about it? None of that. How in debt is El Salvador? Okay? You understand what the hell is going on here? What the hell is going on here? So our military could go down there just on a peace mission. We're going to get these gangs. We're going to show them, what's what. show them who's the boss here for a while until the El Salvadoran and San Salvadoran police and military can get their own footing in order to fight these ruthless, vile, vicious gangs that are terrorizing people enough that they're leaving their homelands and risking life and limb and their children and everything because they've been, their homes have been stolen by these gangs, I guess, essentially. If they're so terrorized that they just, divest their real estate and they just leave their homeland and everything they've ever been familiar with their whole lives, must be pretty bad. So yeah, we should our military should be down there investigating. We should send an investigatory squad. And we, America, we're attached to these people at the hip, literally. So we have a great incentive and motivation to go down there and find out what's the score here. Same with Mexico. I would do it to any of these countries.